We're going to call to order the Tuesday, April 16th meeting of the Corte Madera Town Council. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Casissa.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas. Here. Vice Mayor Ravazio. Here. Mayor Beckman.
Here. Please join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone, just wanted to make one quick announcement. Due to some scheduling issues, we needed to move general public comment to the end of the meeting for this meeting only. So right now we're going to move on to item 2 on today's agenda, which is presentations, and there are none. So we'll move on to item 3, which is the consent calendar. These are items that are routine or have been previously discussed and do not require further discussion. Any member of the public or the council may pull an item from the consent calendar for discussion. Would any members of the town council like to pull a consent calendar item? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to staff and the public. If anyone would like to pull a consent calendar item for discussion, please let us know. I'm not seeing any in person. Lorena, do we have any hands up on Zoom to pull any consent calendar items?
We do not have any hands raised on Zoom. We also don't have any emailed public comment for the consent calendar.
Perfect, thank you. So I will close public comment on the consent calendar and bring it back to the council for a motion.
I'll go and make a motion for consent items 3A to 3E.
I'll second. Okay, Councilmember Casissa.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
Mayor Beckman.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you. We have no public hearings tonight, so we're going to move on to our business items. The first of which is 5A, which is reception of the annual sales tax citizens oversight committee report. And I will turn it over to Karen.
Like talk to the owl or?
The owl will find you.
Hello, council. I'm glad to be here and present our report. We completed this a couple of weeks ago. And basically with only minor changes from what was provided to us by staff. Our committee is Jean, Chris, Carl, and myself, and I just want to let you know that I appreciate how diligent and thoughtful that they are, and they always show up and have great questions. So this is a report that we reviewed and we now present to you.
Perfect.
So if you have any questions, comments, queries, I'd love to hear them.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from council members on the annual sales tax citizens oversight committee report?
I may have comments.
Okay, no questions. So we'll open this item up for public comment. If any members of the public would like to comment on this report, please go ahead and come to the podium if you're with us in person, or raise your hand via Zoom if you would like to comment via Zoom. Not seeing any takers in person. Do we have any hands up on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom and no emailed public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you. So we'll close public comment on this item and bring it back to the council for discussion. And I understand Brett has some thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's a great report.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it. A couple of things. One thing, next time, maybe if you can add percentages of the total, I think would just help. That was expended. It would just help me. I think
So,
people understand.
For instance, on the infrastructure, the first one in capital 1 million, et cetera, what percent that is?
Of the 4.3 million, whatever. Yeah, it just, I like percentages. You can zoom in on.
Is that doable,
Yes,
staff?
sure, absolutely.
I mean, just.
Yeah.
That was.
Sorry.
And just this is more just general, so it's not directed at you. But out of 4.4 million, just to point this out, we spent 114,000 on youth programs and only 23 on seniors. So I think when we get into the budget, I think we need to start, there may have to be give and take on infrastructure versus whatever. But I just want to get that out there, because if you combine those two, it's less than 150,000 on over 4 million that we're bringing in.
Noted. Thank you.
And just one last thing, and this I'll ask staff, this again, it's not directed at you. If you can clarify something, not tonight, you maybe come back to us. I actually went back and read the ordinance from 2018 or so. There's a section here about annual audit, and basically, I think it's 3.52180. It says by no later than December 31st of each year, after the upper date, the town's independent auditor shall complete a report reviewing the collection management and expenditure of tax authorized by this chapter. Auditor's report shall be presented to the town council, made available to the public. I don't know if our general, I don't know if our audited financial, if this is the same, or if we need to me, the intent here, this is my opinion, but again, if you can research it more, the intent to me is that there should be a separate audit report on the sales tax override. So I don't know if the auditor's report is included, especially when it says a date of December 31st. But if you can just research that and get back to us. Thanks. That was it.
You're speaking of the ordinance that brought the committee into existence?
Yeah.
Or
The whole, or, yeah, that's part of the ordinance
with regard
also.
to what was passed, the initiative.
Correct.
Okay. Only other things that I wanted to add is that one of the questions that we had as a committee is that we were cognizant of things that are happening in Sacramento and that their ability, apparently lack of ability to budget properly. So we wanted to at least be cognizant of, could there possibly be ripples into the county and therefore into the city and therefore into, you know, what money gets spent on. And I'm sure you're aware of the lack of Sacramento's ability to budget. And hopefully are aware of any possible things that we need to accommodate with regard to that. And then the second thing that I just wanted to ask is usually we have a council liaison that shows up at our meetings. We don't need a liaison. We're totally able on our own. But I wasn't sure if when the liaison grouping and assignments changed who our liaison was and so on. So do you know who?
The liaison was included in all communications and that person is Fred Casisa.
I thought it was Pat for some reason.
In December,
I thought it was switched.
you switched back in December.
I thought it was last December that was switched. That's why I wasn't going to the meeting.
I'll look at my records
That's fine.
and everything.
Yeah, it should be on the town website.
Yes.
We take it personal.
Want both of us?
Yes,
Oh, no.
next time, both of you to make up for last time.
Well, thank you, Karen. Any other comments from council members?
I think it was a thorough report and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Karen, as always,
Thanks.
thank you to you and your colleagues. And I believe we need a vote to accept the report. Is that correct?
In the past, no vote was taken and the report was just accepted by council.
Okay, we will consider the report gratefully accepted. Thank you for your work.
Thanks.
We're going to move on to item 5B, which is consideration and possible authorization for Public Works to approve the plans, advertise for bids, and award a construction contract for the Coffee Complete Streets project. I'm going to turn it over to our Public Works team.
All right, thank you, Mayor Beckman, members of the council. So this is a project that has been in the works for quite a long time, I think at least 2015. It really links Corte Madera to parts of Southern Marin, Mill Valley via the Forest Hill Path. And it serves, part of our community that, really doesn't have a means of comfortable and even at times perhaps, not the ideal access via pedestrian and bike facilities to our core center in Corte Madera. This project was originally set up for construction in 2022. We held off because PG&E said, hey, we're coming in to do a large gas distribution project. And we said, well, we don't want to put in a new roadway that is just going to get destroyed. So that's been really what we've adjusted our schedule to and in 2025. So we intended on summer 2025. We actually got a grant around that time for $416,000 for transportation for clean air and had to go through several hoops to actually get an extension to be able to build it then. But at that time they said, this is, we cannot extend it further. And then sometime last year, PG said, well, our schedule is now extending to 2026. And so that would mean we would have to wait likely till 2027. We said, we can't do it. Don't want to lose the funds. These people need the facilities. So here we are again, but this time moving forward. The there's a lot of merits to the project. So, some of these bullets are captured here in the staff report. I mentioned the link between Horse Hill and, Canal Street here over by the Tesla dealership. It's adding, 1,800 linear feet of new concrete sidewalks. That's pretty substantial. Maybe one of the larger sidewalk projects I've been involved in. It's got class 2 southbound bike lanes, so that's the primary uphill movement. There are a couple other ones in the other direction that we're trying to find some shoulder width and other things to address that movement for cyclists. And also, we're improving the intersection there at the entrance to Highway 101 South. There have been a couple incidents in the past, and so we're actually putting some safety enhancements there as well. To get the sidewalk in, it involves a lot of retaining walls on the uphill side, kind of on the Marin Joe's side, and beyond. And so that's why the cost is what it is. It's a fairly significant project in expense, but also has a lot of good merits. When this project was first scoped, one thing that was not included in the design scope was lighting. And through some of the discussions we had, in particular when the county was talking about the Project Home Key effort, there was really this kind of request from the community for lighting. So we have that included in this bid set as an additive bid item that we could include or not include, and we can wait till bids to decide. So that's really an element that I was hoping to get some feedback on. We do want to move this forward, so I am requesting authorization to also award within a reasonable not to exceed limit. But I want to get your feedback on the solar lighting here.
Awesome. Thank you, RJ. All right, we'll open this up to council members for questions.
So I have a question about the solar lighting. Why are we choosing the solar lighting versus like a wired lighting, and what's the kind of maintenance and long-term viability of solar lighting compared to other types of street lights?
Yeah, absolutely good question. In general, for this particular project and the number of lights that we have, we're not putting in lights every 150 feet and really just like lighting up the whole corridor. It's really kind of on your, kind of more just safety and basic side of things. I don't recall the exact space, so maybe it's like 500 feet. So we have 11 envisioned for the project, and it's actually cheaper to go solar in this scenario. Obviously there is a tree canopy, eucalyptus, so we reached out to at least 3 different lighting, solar lighting, suppliers that, hey, like what, so these solar panels may be bigger than your typical one you might see somewhere else to account for that. But it is a savings of at least half to go with this.
Wow. Yeah, question.
No,
And then on maintenance, it's not that different than what we do for the the rectangular rapid flash beacons.
and these are LEDs, right? So
Yeah.
they have tens of thousands of hours on them.
Any questions?
Yes. Thank you, RJ. What happens when PG&E comes back in 27? Is that when they're going to dig up the work?
So we're gonna, we're obviously gonna bid this because we feel like we have to. We would at minimum lose the 400 something thousand funds. We'll still have a conversation right before to see more precisely where they are digging and to what extent and all those things, and see if there's some effort to not waste public funds. Our roadway ordinances require them to pave it at least to center line, but as almost all of us pay to PG&E, we just still don't want to waste money. So we'll have that discussion and make some decisions, and if we can come to an agreement where both entities get what they need and we can collectively save money and time and resources, we will.
I think I just talked myself out of the question. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Questions down here?
Yeah, just one question on the solar lights, making sure we don't repeat some of the past mistakes of other jurisdictions. Are we sure that the lights are not so high that they'll be shooting into the hilltop homes? And have we done what we can to make them feel, charming small town rather than big highway lights? Or
Yeah.
are they?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're aware of the feedback from Sir Francis Drake in particular. Those are really tightly spaced and really high and really bright. So we'll be, similar to the LED retrofit project, we're gonna pick a Kelvin that's similar, that kind of warmer tone, not the white bright, what was it called? A car lot or something. So, and then, like I said, the spacing is pretty minimal, and they're not, I don't know if you recall the height, but they're more of the, I would say, I think they're 12, 15 feet as opposed to like,
Like a big highway?
60 feet from the ground near.
So would you do the same kind of lensing studies you did on the replacements? Like,
Shielding.
yeah, the shielding and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so there's 11 lights, really, we have it's kind of, so one option is we just put in shields where we think we need to do on the project. They're not that expensive. 100 or 200 each per light. The other one that we could do is turn them on, and then if we get feedback, we go and put one on. And so we did a combo of that on LED retrofit. When we did 400 plus lights. We said, hey, these ones we know are a problem, and then yet we still got a dozen or so calls, and we addressed it.
Okay. Any other questions down here? Did you want to jump in?
If I can, I also just wanted to add one additional detail about this project that will support as well our efforts on the housing element to affirmatively further fair housing, because not only Project Home Key, but we have a lot of apartment homes over there, which are sort of lower in sort of the rents and housing prices along that corridor, which part of affirmatively furthering fair housing is also creating a place-based strategies to improve mobility and access to, areas, at least in our town, such as Casa Buena, which could use the improvements for walking, mobility, safety, and so forth. And so I just wanted to highlight that tie in there as well to our housing element.
Great point, Adam. Thank you. Any other questions down at this end? Okay, sounds good. I had the same question as Rosa, so I think that's it for council questions. We'll open this item up to public comment. If any members of the public would like to comment on this, please go ahead and join us at the podium here if you're in person, or raise your hand on Zoom. Not seeing anyone jump up in person here tonight. Do we have any hands up on Zoom or emailed public comment?
We have a hand raised from Patty Stoller.
Perfect.
How could I not comment on Casa Buena Complete Streets? So I had two questions. One is, with the Home Key project, was the county going to contribute anything towards improving Casa Buena? And the other was, we had PG&E come to our homeowners condo board meeting a few years ago, I guess many years ago, and told us that the gas lines are 100 years old, and so we understood that they needed to be replaced. But the map they showed us showed it was a little bit west of the street. And I understand from staff that no, it's like right in the street. So maybe we'll look out and it'll turn out that they won't have to disrupt the new street when the PG&E comes back. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for the new street and the lighting.
Thank you, Patty. Any other hands up on Zoom?
No additional hands raised on Zoom. And
Okay.
we did not receive email public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no further public comment, we'll bring this item back to the council for discussion. We'll start on this side this time. Any comments?
No, I think it's great. I'm glad that's finally going to move forward.
Great. And supportive of lighting?
Yep.
Okay.
Do it lighting.
Pat, good.
Agree on both?
Excellent.
Support the lighting, yes.
Great.
Super excited to see this move forward. I know lots of people that are gonna really benefit from it. I think it's a great way to incorporate and bring that area into town more, to Adam's point. And I think the lighting is a good portion of a good add to help
create that safe, connection, so.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I think there's a couple other things at play here. I think this is kind of our holding up our end of the deal. There were residents who had safety concerns around home key, and I think one of the things that they asked for was lighting, and I think we really appreciate that the community, the neighborhood, got behind Project Home Key and ended up being supportive of that project. So I think it's time for us to do our job, or, uphold our end of that bargain and add lighting like they asked for. I also think, I'm hopeful that the lighting could help combat dumping that we've seen there. There's been some kind of now and then issues with illegal dumping. So hopefully with lighting, people will be deterred from that. So that's exciting. The last thing I just wanted to say is I don't know if it was my very first council meeting, but it was certainly within like the first couple of months that Jean Greenbaum, who lives off Causeway, I don't know if she's online with us tonight. But she was, telling us about how Causeway needs to be redone. And I said, oh, we'll get that done, like this year, it's not going to be a problem. And, that wasn't even the beginning of the Causeway discussion. And here we are, 6 years later, which is hard to believe. So I know that there are residents who I think were questioning at times whether we were actually committed to doing this. And clearly we are. So I'm very glad to see it happen, supportive of the lighting. And I appreciate Public Works' effort in making this happen. Thank you, guys. We'll take a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to authorize the Director of Public Works to approve the plans and contract documents for the Casablanca the Complete Streets. Project number 15021.
Perfect. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right.
Councilmember Casissa.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
Mayor Beckman.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 5C, which is consideration of resolution number 13, 2024, accepting the town project report and approving the proposed town park skate park renovation and expansion and the installation of proposed new pickleball courts.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Next presentation here. First of all, just thank you for bringing this back discussion. Hoping the packet was able to read the town project report, the resolution, and the staff report. I'm going to tag team this with myself and Nick and the consultant. Hopefully, be here shortly and go over the discussion of the pickleball courts and the expansion of the skate park and some other miscellaneous projects. So, all right, Nick, next slide. I love the cool standard. Obviously, myself, Tim Barry, Park Rec Director. Make sure to introduce yourself. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, I want to first introduce Nick Cartagena. He's our newest member to Public Works. He's a senior civil engineer. We waited a long time for someone like him to come through the door. And excited to have him. He comes with 50 plus years of engineering experience, and so this is just one of several things he's doing, hitting the ground running. So I'm excited he's here. You can't leave.
Well,
Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Is John here? Not yet. He should be here soon. Okay. I'll just echo what RJ say. Nick has been great helping me with this project from the commission and council. We are super to have him, and I don't want to leave either. So, all right. Overall, we're going to talk some overview and background. We're going to talk about the skate park, talk about the pickleball courts enhancements, and kind of a general Q&A about questions for us about the entire project. So, next is the the southwest corner of the park we're talking about here. Obviously, you have the current 2 tennis courts. You have the current skate park. You have a ball wall. You have a grass area. You have, you can't see the picture, but 2 temporary pickleball courts on top of the 2 tennis courts closest to the parking lot. So that's currently what is there at the southwest corner of town park. We bring this together as kind of a holistic approach to kind of redoing this part of the park. We understand it's a much used part of the park and a part of the park that these enhancements will greatly affect and enhance the park itself and bring great joy to people who use these elements. So first, we're going to talk about skate park. Skate park kind of conceptually came together when I got a call from Amy Lapp, who was part of the Scotty Lapp Foundation back in early May, and said, my son's passion with skateboarding, he died in a tragic accident. How can we give back to the community? Started with that presentation to commission. Of course, everybody was absolutely for it. Let's figure out how to get it done.
She went to commission 2 more times, August 28th, kind of review and discussion of kind of what they were thinking. And again, on March 25th of this year to possibly talk about an expansion. And then we kind of went down this road of a pickleball court. There was an area that wasn't being used that they could expand out that was already flat, that was level to make some more elements for kids of all ages to basically be part of the park. They kicked off their first meeting on May 31st, 2023, and boy, did they kick it off. They probably had 125 people out there who were passionate about getting this done tomorrow. The power and the connections and the passion of these people, however, unknown. They kicked off a first survey on that date and basically said, hey, we want to know about the park. Put up some QR codes, connected all the schools, connected all the skateboarders, and basically got real data of, do you use the park? When do you use the park? What do you want to see? Came to you in town council in September, basically said, hey, here's our vision, here's our view. You blessed and said, go forward, do the work. They held a community outreach meeting on November 15, 2023. Got a bunch of high schools together to look, here's a blank canvas, what would you want to see in the park? At the same time, launched another survey and said, hey, if you could have this element, how would you make it work? It was a really cool activity where kids got to design what they want to see in the park. It's kind of like if you want to build your house out of IKEA furniture, how do you do it? Kids had a great time. They really were passionate and empowered by it to say, I've got a say in how this park's built. They have been busy since we first started this, basically funding and trying to scout and fundraise for this project. They are gung-ho, they're here tonight to support. I know Amy's online. And basically later tonight, you'll see some draft conceptual design from California Skate Park. So they work with very closely. There's some ideas of what the park might look like when they give the go-ahead to go, hopefully this. And hopefully construction this summer. And again, they are basically planning on fundraising the entire project for themselves through the skate park on their own without any town help for the actual project. Next slide. Thank you.
Now it stopped. Sorry.
All right.
I think my screen's was.
So pickleball courts, obviously, again, just the planning and processing community we went through to get to this point for pickleball. Early in November 2023, we talked about support of pickleball courts added as the highest need of the community master plan. It was identified that town park made the most sense. Basically had a couple discussions with Park and Rec Commission first in December 2023 or fourth thing. Hey, how does it work? What are the impacts? What are we thinking? Again, going back into commission in January, find out an approval of, hey, this is how it's laid out. These are some features, commission give input, a good community input. And then in March of 2024, basically enhancement discussion of, hey, after hearing from the community, what enhancement do you make so that we deal with the sound area questions? How do we deal with people who want to use it for multi-use sports? How do we deal with things so that it's a true pickleball facility and that it's used by the community? It was allocated money in the council budget in June of 2023. It was again a high priority in the council strategic work plan in February of 2024. And hopefully the plan is construction this in the summer of 2024 this year to get it open in the fall, kind of along with the skate park. The next slide is just a slide from the master plan. We did the prioritization matrix of looking at all possible facilities, all possible improvements. Pickleball was ranked the highest in that feasibility of getting it done, cost, and the need of that of the community surveys of a dedicated pickleball court. So there's no more issues with pickleballers and tennis, which gets very ugly. There's some of the pickleball players, but two dedicated courts in town park.
Jump in on this one, RJ Sicko, Director of Public Works. So we presented this not too long ago to the Parks and Rec Commission, and there were some comments about just in general, how is the park used? So we thought it was a good exercise moving forward to kind of just take a crack at, basically what areas are used by what groups, just to get a sense of just the usage and opportunities and whatnot. So, I think to no surprise, soccer is one of the, it's the most active club that uses the facility. And then we have some, lower groups in lacrosse, rugby, baseball. And then really the pickleball portion, if implemented, would only represent about 0.5% of town park. So, there was feedback or comments about, trying to make the pickleball court a multi-use, sports facility. And, we think there's enough demand to have it be pickleball, but obviously should usage not, show that, as it's opened and whatnot, there's certainly opportunities to discuss how it's operated in the future. And then the other thing I wanted to frame just before, Nick jumps into the specifics. So, as Tim mentioned, both the skate park has its own project that's really a publicly funded and donated project. It's, ready to go. They want to move forward with construction, very soon. Likewise, pickleball has been to council and Parks and Rec multiple times. It's been budgeted. It's also ready to go. So really, these are in that final stage. Whereas some of the other stuff that we included in the staff report, just the overall kind of quadrant here of opportunities, it's kind of I would say more of a draft conceptual plan that, we thought would be good to look at from a more comprehensive level since we're doing these two projects.
Cool. All right. So my name is Nick Cartagena. I'm the new senior civil engineer in public works, and I appreciate the warm welcome. I'm going to speak to the skate park first, and then separately we'll talk about the pickleball court. The first slide you see in front of you is hopefully she's okay with it, but I grabbed a picture of Amy Lapp since I wanted to make sure that everyone's very clear of the massive donation that they're putting forth to make this happen. They are, so I just want to make sure we're giving due credit to the foundation. Next slide, please. So, I reached out to the Amy Lapp Scotty Lapp Foundation and California Skate Parks, who's their designer, working on this design. And they provided us with this conceptual plan that shows the full skate park using the expanded area as well. So California Skate Parks, they're one of the contractors behind the Tokyo Olympics and other high-profile competition spaces. And I'm going to go through this latest concept plan for the renovation and expansion project. This is an early design concept from California Skate Parks, and it's intended to show just a general idea and the look and feel of what's being considered. So just to give you your bearings, I think it's pretty obvious, but the up top is the Pixley parking lot. To the right is the existing restroom, and what's not shown is the pickleball court because it's not part of their design, but we'll be going through that separately.
May I ask a question about that though?
Sure.
That'd be on the left-hand side where that gray area is. Is that where we're talking about for the pickleball?
Correct. Yeah. So during the design process, the designers recognized an opportunity to expand the skate park to the south and add 1,700 square feet to the park size. The additional space exponentially improves their design and their ability to provide a skate park with the right mix of features and enough space for the ideal flow and circulation for the skate park. Next slide, please. This is another view of the same conceptual design, just kind of showing you a little bit more. I should note that the existing skate park is built with wood and metal construction, which is a bit on the louder side, where the new skate park is going to be made out of concrete, much quieter. So that was something that we wanted to point out because I know that there's been a lot of there's been some concerns about the noise from the park. The fencing shown, we'll get into it a little bit more detail in the pickleball court project, but the fencing shown is not quite accurate. We're going to be putting in 10-foot tall fencing and some sound absorbing blankets on the pickleball court fencing, which shares with the skate park fencing on this side. Next one, please. And here's one final view of the same plan. As was previously mentioned, we're trying to get it, we're seeking approval on the expansion to include the area to the south of the skate park, the 1,700 additional feet. We feel that this is a prime real estate for the expansion. It's flat, paved, there's no vegetation. It really enhances the skate park and kind of gives it the space that it needs to breathe and to be what the Scotty Lapp Foundation is envisioning for the area. And I realize that these visuals are pretty exciting to soak in, and we can come back to them and during the Q&A session if you guys want to. But we'll move on to the next slide. So I'm going to move on to the pickleball court project and the conceptual enhancements. So it gets a bit cumbersome where we have the skate park project, one separate project. The second project is pickleball court project. And then we have a third kind of conceptual design to kind of tie everything together, which our consultant will be here at some point and we'll. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to hop off the podium, we'll introduce you in a minute.
Okay.
Just watch your step over here with the wire.
Or you could just.
Yeah. Yeah. Microphone's in the-
You just have
Podium right
to,
here.
you have to speak loudly so that it can hear you.
When ready.
Next
Okay, yes. So I have a couple slides that I'm going to use to discuss the finishes and the features that we're considering for the pickleball court. And then I'm going to hand the rest of the presentation off to John Gibbs with WRT Design to go over the layout of the pickleball court and some of the other features that we're considering. And then we'll tie it all off with any questions that we have at that point. So the first feature that I'm showing here is the sound blankets that. Yes. So one of the concerns we're taking seriously from the community was the issue of sound. We're looking at several different products for sound absorption and blocking. The product currently being considered has both blocks and absorbs sound, which was something that we thought was important to have. We would install these blankets along the western pickleball fence, half of the northern fence of the pickleball court, and half of the southern fence, which John will get into in more detail. The cost is approximately $25,000 to $30,000 for these sound blanket sound absorption measures. This particular product is quilted with fiberglass and absorbs on both sides of the blanket. Next one, please. Yeah, that's okay.
The sleeve isn't.
Yeah, we're just gonna bring it up. So one of the exciting things that we wanted to bring up were the color options for the pickleball court. Here are a few options that we've been considering. Staff tends to lean towards the town colors on the bottom right-hand corner. But definitely interested in your thoughts on that. Okay.
So thank you, Nick. So something that came up, some of the comments that came up when we last presented with Parks and Rec was the noise. At that time, we had the sound barrier actually on the outside of the skate park. And there was actually a push to have it really focus on the fencing that is directly around the pickleball courts. There's one corner there that faces the interior of the park, though, that is kind of a gathering area. So we did, we'll be showing that in a minute, but it really kind of shows that being open because pickleball is, whatever, everything I've heard, very social kind of experience. So, you know, we want to consider that. And then the other thing, there was a request to keep or replace the ball wall. And given the ball wall was in conflict with the pickleball courts, which were north-south, and that's the preferred direction for sunlight and whatnot. We were able to find a way to incorporate a ball wall into the pickleball court to address that comment. So, but with that, you know, as we started going through this and seeing all these things happening in the same area, also, you know, walking it and seeing just some of the areas are tired, you know, stressed. There's tree wells with no trees in them. There's, you know, benches that, you know, came up in our deficiency report as needing upgrades and not meeting ADA. We have picnic areas that also, you know, may not meet ADA. So really, you know, trying to come up with that, start developing that holistic vision of what it could look like and what we want it to look like. And before we just go and spend a bunch of money on benches and other things. So, so there's some additional presentation slides. These were included in the staff report, and we're gonna turn it over to John Gibbs with WRT. And go ahead and take it away, and we can answer the questions at the end.
Great, pleased to be engaged to support the town on this project. And I think RJ, you summed it up nicely. You know, this is a park that receives a lot of love. There's a lot of use there. It's also maybe a little run down in places. There's some new things coming in. How can we help you guys kind of just put it all together to really make it work, to make it more successful, I think, for more people, add more shade, update some code items, et cetera. Just kind of tie it all together. So I think we have a few slides that I think show existing conditions, and I can just kind of walk through this. Hopefully in the presentation. Or you.
In the presentation PDF or the.
If not, it's in this, it wasn't exactly the stuff.
Yeah, I know we have them in the staff report.
Oh,
Page 11 of 40. That's the one you're looking for.
Probably.
Yeah, we can. Should we hang on a second and then we'll get that loaded? Awesome.
So WRT, you know, one of their primary focuses is landscape architect, amongst several other things, but you know, we're excited to see what they could come up with, and I think you guys will too.
Yeah, the process was great, walking around out in the park, talking with folks who were out there, hearing from staff about the good work and the really great work on the skate park, pickleball components. We just, you know, we got a sense of things. My colleague Peter Trio presented to the Parks Commission recently. I think we had some really good direct feedback, and a lot of those comments have been incorporated today. And I think RJ went over a number of those just a minute ago. So yeah, it's been a good process. Lots of opportunity and you know, not a major project, but coming up with some good priorities. So, yeah, I think this was our.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, this is just our cover sketch here, just as a quick illustration of kind of all these components coming together, tying together with pathways, with new trees, vegetation, picnic areas, and just really making it feel like it's spruced up. And so when these new elements come in, people feel really good about this park and feel good about how it can all function. I think the next slide is just zeroes in on existing conditions. Couple things that really, you know, struck us, looked a little unwelcoming in some of the entry points from the parking lot. The quality of the picnic tables, the picnic areas, certainly some accessibility components, but just stuff needed to be updated and replaced. A lot of the vegetation needed some attention. Some trees had been removed. We lost some shade. Some folks were concerned about that. So needing to replace trees. Also a lot of sight lines, some of the dense growth of vegetation, some shrubs that maybe had originally envisioned to be only a few feet tall are now even some small trees. So some sight lines, some buffers and things that we could look at with the recent removal of trees. How do we replant trees? We were interested in access to the skate park, access to pickleball, this was mentioned. The entrance to the pickleball, certainly something to think about in terms of how do you make that a welcoming space and provide those tables and those gathering areas for the social aspects that happen out there. And we addressed the wall comments as well, and to incorporate that. The existing restroom building, I think we also noted that one in particular. While it's so it's not real pretty, it's a super functional restroom. There's actually quite a bit invested in that. And there could be some things to do to spruce that up. So we didn't look at a full replacement. That's $1 million right off the bat. But how do we work with what we have and think that through just a little bit more? So just another thing we noted. I think the next slide, we show the existing circulation in red there along the parking lot. Entrance to the skate park, it's the small little red line, and then the larger entrance coming into the park. As we move forward, we looked at some updates to the circulation, adding a little bit more clarity to that, a little bit more welcoming entrance points as well. We looked at some shade, thank you so much. Next slide. We looked at some shade analysis and saw that there was some, nice areas of shade. And when we were out there, there was caregivers in the skate park in the shade because there was shade there. They weren't using the skate park. They were just trying to get some shade and find a little shelter. So it just, it struck us that need to think about shade and perhaps spreading that shade out around the park. And that was consistent with comments that we heard. So took a good look at that. The next slide. We looked at a number of vegetation species. We looked at tree species, looking at some appropriate native species, as well as some other climate appropriate species. These aren't an exhaustive list, but these are just some opportunities. And then we were excited by the pollinator gardens at the adjacent school and identified that there were some opportunities to bring even more of a concentration of native plants, flowering species in particular, in a small pocket to extend that experience, maybe connect with some of those users and add some biodiversity to the park here as well. Again, kind of conceptual and high level. So then we move into the plan that really kind of shows how we tie it all together. I think a couple of things that we looked at in particular as we were understanding locations of the skate park, understanding the new pickleball courts. How does all this work with a lot of the other uses that are happening there, in soccer in particular? And the soccer folks were really clear about some of their needs. And I think we landed it in a pretty good place with the buffers and the setbacks to the existing soccer fields. Some places for seating and viewing of soccer with some low walls and some mounds that folks can sit on, can engage with the soccer game. Also, just as a little buffer and a separation, then creating a smaller lawn area and a series of picnic gathering spaces kind of there in the nook between the skate park and between the pickleball. What's kind of an open area with a few tables sitting out there, just being a little bit more deliberate about how those tables are clustered, providing some trees and some shade associated with those. Just makes it a nice spot. We updated the circulation in the concept plan, creating an entrance point over towards on the west side. This would be a new entrance point and a loop path that then connects through the park and over towards the corner at the tennis courts, as well as emphasizing the primary entrance past the bathroom. Doing so with some updated signage, revegetating that edge so it's a little bit more welcoming. The sight lines are improved. Trees are replaced and corrected where there's some dead ones, and creating some potential concerns. We're just kind of tying it all together. I don't think I need to get into it in too much detail because you guys have been able to review it. We're happy to answer more questions about it as we move forward. I think that's the last slide in that exhibit. Thank you.
So with that, happy to answer any questions you have about the skate park, pickleball court, or some of these initial concepts for the area as a whole.
And I would just mention the specific action here tonight would really the request for approval of the town project report, which just relates to the pickleball and the skate park items themselves, not the conceptual design of the other elements, which I think will still sort of progress through design aspect, but certainly comments are welcome there.
Okay, so those just more like context for the two things that,
Yeah,
the two specific things. that we're
Exactly,
talking
so
about.
just
Okay.
to clarify that, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, well, thank you everybody for the great presentation. We're gonna open this up to questions from council members and we'll start down here.
Okay, so if we're not going to talk specifically about any elements of it. but
I
just
think we're here to talk about the town project report for the skate park and the pickleball court, but not so much the grander sort of like mini master plan of that corner. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly comments are welcome, but the actual action before the council this evening is really related to the pickleball and skate park.
Great.
Okay, okay. Well, I just have a question about the sound blankets. So they would be around both the pickleball court and the skateboard park. Is that correct?
So we showed them on. Bring this one back up.
Yes.
So we had shown them around the skate park, knowing that the closest folks are people on Pixley.
Mhm.
And some of the comments were actually to focus them around the pickleball courts, knowing that the skate park is going to be put back in concrete. There will still remain some vegetation as a sound buffer around the skate park, but really focus the sound barrier more or less on kind of 2.5 sides in that kind of darker blue line there.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I was thinking about was how people would be able to observe or, you know, be able to see what's going on.
Yep.
If they wanted to. And so, yeah.
So it's a little tight. There's a yellow circle there labeled also hangout area.
Mhm. Okay,
So that would more or less be the kind of waiting for your turn and having your coffee or just watching or, you know, and so that side is open, that corner.
fine. But the skateboard area, that's just totally open.
It's open, you know, likely there would be a similar size fence around it,
Mhm.
but otherwise. it'd be-
But not the blankets.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then, there was, and maybe this just because I know nothing about, pickleball. But you're saying you're putting in a ball wall, it's gonna be in pickleball court?
Yeah,
So that's a different use than pickleball, or you use that in
Right.
pickleball?
Yeah, so, you could use it technically for pickleball or tennis or I guess multiple things, but it's right here on this court in the back. So similar location as the other one, just slightly different alignment.
All right, that's all I have.
I have a few questions. So is there any integration of seating in the skate park? I mean, I see people sitting on the curb like they currently do, but I've always felt like in that area and, you know, I know the bigger picture of redoing some of the benches and stuff, but the park itself, does it have any specific seating area or somewhere where the caregivers or, you know, the kids could hang out that isn't? Part of that is thought about that, or the pickleball courts too, right? Because even in the, you know, when you have the tennis courts, right, there's usually places for people to sit while they wait and that kind of thing. So I didn't see any in it. So that was the first question. The other question is, we can start in the summer. Is the timing that it's 3 months, or like, you know, by the end of the, like, when would you think completion of these two elements would be?
Yeah.
And then the relationship of these two elements to then how to tie it all together. Like, is that a sequence 2-year project? Just
Sure.
And then the other one is in the renderings, a couple of them start talking about bathroom improvements. So my question is, are bathroom improvements part of this whole quadrant, or is there tie-ins to the upgrade to the skate park for an integration of that bathroom facility into this kind of makeup? So those are the 3 things that I was looking for a little more clarity on.
Sure. I don't know if anyone from Sky Lab wants to jump in on a couple of those, schedule in particular. But you're welcome to come to the podium and answer. Otherwise, I can respond from our previous conversations.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Amy's online.
That's okay. Don't if you want to.
No, I mean, the timing was like, shockingly fast. I think 12 to 16 weeks upon breaking ground. So it's actually quite fast. It's actually not a very big park. And California Skate Park, they're making things 5 to 10 times bigger than this in places all over the world. So it's actually quite quick. Your question about the benches inside. I don't know if Amy online knows the answer to that, but I think for safety purposes, a lot of the seating is going to be on the peripheral of the skate park, because you do have people kind of going in and out throughout. So I think that would probably be the same for seating in the pickleball court as well, so on the outsides.
Okay.
I would just add, I think if you're scootering or skating, they kind of perch up on the top ledges as participants and watch, because they take turns, and then kids will often be sitting on the side even at the park now, they just sit on the side and kind of watch and catch their breath and then come back in.
Happy to elaborate. I think there's definitely opportunities just on the outside of that walkway that gets you to the pickleball courts to have ADA accessible benches. And I think actually, someone from the Skylab group was saying how really skating there's an element of a spectator sport to it. And so they obviously supported that. And I think, as we get further down, even the Memorial Bench program, we can look at those opportunities as well. And then on the bathroom, I know we've talked about, I don't know how much was going to be part of their project or maybe a future opportunity, but, murals and other things that could go on the back side of the bathrooms and really work with, people local and or, youth to really be a part of that. So hopefully they have some, investment and don't want to tag their own work, et cetera. So that's definitely come up, and we think that's a good opportunity.
Thank you. Awesome, thanks. Any questions down here?
Yeah, a couple, kind of leveraging off something Rosa asked. How effective are those sound blankets? Because I play pickleball sometimes, and I can hear it way far away. How effective are they?
They can pull up the data sheet, but they're
rough idea.
Yeah, they're 10 feet tall, and so for one, I don't know, John, if you're comfortable talking about some of the other areas you've worked with and kind of how they've applied or created standards and distances and whatnot, but maybe you can.
Yeah, we've been involved in a lot of other park planning projects. In the city of Boulder has gone through a whole very specific study around courts. And this kind of blanket material has come up as a really important component of that they're taking a really close look at. All this stuff is kind of brand new, so I don't think there's lots of studies over the last many years, but the studies that the manufacturer shows benefit. And there are some sound decibel studies for how far sound goes from pickleball court, how close a resident may be, and this blanket is going to be helpful to mitigate for some of the nearer residences that are still quite a ways across the street, but still kind of within I don't remember, I think if we are using like a 500 foot zone to just test to make sure we're attenuating sound within that.
Are those blankets, can you see through them?
No, they're fairly opaque, much like a windscreen around a tennis court. They're going to provide that same level of opacity.
Okay.
Fun fact, in Boulder, they're concerned about the use because they have snow accumulation in the shade. Not an issue for us.
It's just on the sound. So looking at the physical performance values, so they have blocking of sound and its own rating, and then they also have an NRC, which is an absorption factor, like you would have on these acoustical panels, and it's actually similar to the acoustical panel absorption rate. So, and the other thing that, we did a little research on, although, haven't, tightened it up for a presentation today, but really a lot of these other jurisdictions feels like 300 feet is kind of where you really start to think about these. And if you look at these pickleball courts in relation to like the nearest Pixley, they're just outside of 300 feet. And then on top of that, they're still getting, these blankets.
And then in one of the pictures, it looks like they're a brown color. Is that a standard color or, because I'm thinking if you're standing in the parking lot, you're looking out, you're gonna see a big brown blob, no offense. Do those things come in different colors? Like we can make it a greenish color, some colors that would blend in to the scenery more instead of standing out, you're going, it looks like a blob of brown.
Yeah. I think that's a great comment, and that's something that.
Yeah, there's 12 colors available.
Okay,
We
we don't have to decide tonight, it's just one of those things. Try to figure out how to blend it in.
Right.
To the greenery of the park if you can.
Not in a brown way, but in a green.
It was maybe, it was terracotta, but maybe it came over.
And then with all this vegetation between the vegetation where the parking lot is, skateboard park, and then the pickleball court, what happens to sight lines with Central Wind Police if they're driving by? Can they actually see in skateboard park? Can they see in pickleball courts? And again, I'm thinking more from a law enforcement standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, right now, we're kind of gonna proceed with kind of the existing shrubs, which are adequate for sightlines and whatnot on the skate park. But as we go forward, as further design and develop this concept, we can certainly entertain, adding more and improving the feel, the sound, and maintaining sightlines.
Okay, yeah, he just made one thing about reaching out to Chief Norton at some point in time, just to kind of coordinate with him. How do you figure out the grading with the rain, standing water, both for the skateboard park and also pickleball courts, which I assume they would be closed during the winter times?
So yeah, we do have a very slight slope. We envision pouring that in concrete. And so we'll be getting between 0.5% and 1% for concrete. That's decent. We do have slot drains already around the skate park, so it already does drain as it is now. So there's only minor modifications needed, not major things. And then we'll work with Scotty Lab to make sure that their new improvements don't block that drainage flow. And they're aware of the drain limits as well. So I think hopefully they're incorporating that in their design. We haven't, they were when we talked a couple months ago, so I have no reason to believe they are ahead of that. So
With the pickleball court, that won't drain into, you put slot drains I just want to make sure it doesn't drain into the soccer field or, go that way towards the park and then we create a bigger problem.
So we do have it sloping that way, but we also do have some additional slot drains that we can put on the backside and capture it and tie it into the existing slot drains that go around the skate park.
Okay, and this is more, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can add two additional things. One is that half of the pickleball court is already paved, so it's only half of the court that's going to be a new impervious surface. So that was one thing I wanted to mention. The other is going back to the sound. This is an improvement from the existing conditions in that the pickleball is currently at the tennis courts, and we're actually moving it a little bit further away from Pixley. And it's going to have more in between the pickleball courts and the residences where there's going to be a skate park and the restrooms and a few additional trees and whatnot. So that on top of the sound blankets, it should be an improvement to what's currently out there.
Okay. And just a couple of quick questions for Tim. I know no time is a good time. What happens during the summer, summer programming? Do you have to adjust anything with that whole area kind of being shut down?
No, actually, there are no skate parks scheduled in the summertime. It'll be the fall when the state's parks would come back open with classes. So, and that part of the park of that grass area is mostly used by soccer in the fall or springtime. So not in the summertime, there's really not a lot going on that section, just more picnic than anything in springtime.
Okay, and you're already thinking about reservation system, because these things are gonna be popular because.
Are you talking pickleball?
Pickleball, yeah.
So my vision is taking it back to commission to talk about some rules and regulations, since we never had dedicated pickleball courts.
Okay.
Hours, rules and regulations, kind of that kind of stuff, which we haven't dealt with before. To have them weigh in and after reading some surveys of surrounding cities of how do we limit how much they're there, how often they're there, how long they can play, those kind of things. And then bring those into the new rules when they get input.
Okay, and there's no, sorry, thanks, there's no lighting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Wouldn't preclude it down the road, but not part of,
I appreciate that.
and yeah, we're potentially about a month out from bidding the pickleball courts, the overall construction. We have 6 to 8 weeks, so potentially, mid-July, mid-August, right?
Okay, and I think you mentioned before, it's less than 1% of green space that we're eating into.
The overall pickleball courts are 0.5%. So the net portion we're eating into is likely an 1/8%.
Okay, if you add the restrooms, it doesn't put the new restrooms on the other side. It's minor also eating into green space. Okay, thanks. And then one last question, more for the LAP Foundation. And I appreciate all that you guys do, plus you acted super fast. Just out of curiosity, about how much is that park costing? Skateboard park, rough idea.
Yeah, it's $75 a square foot, and now we're at $300,000-400,000. Yeah, it's about $300,000 to $400,000.
Okay, all right, thanks, I appreciate it.
Nathan Lap is on the meeting as a panelist if you wanted to hear.
Outside of drainage, as we start building new paths or think about paths, is there percolation good enough that if we did a porous like pavement instead of just the asphalt, that, we could see, we wouldn't have to use these like hardscape surfaces and could have porous surface, walkways that could hold up?
I think, given some of the soil conditions of the site, we'd probably be doing something like a bioretention filter through that, media, because, Town Park was a marsh area, and so doesn't have a lot of permeability.
Got it.
But definitely part of what we should be thinking about in terms of just water quality in general.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great question, Charles. Any other questions from council members? I'm so sorry, we didn't even get to you yet.
Just a quick question on the pickleball. So is this gonna be gated in and worked with a key, or how is this gonna compare to the tennis program?
So it is going to be gated in. Commission was very adamant about having it not be keyed because of both the wall there as a free option in the park that we'd be obviously taking it. We gated and closed it. So they asked that we be it unlocked at this time and then kind of review it in the year to see if it's got an issue. But leave the tennis courts with the keys to the banana pickleball courts.
So it'll just be first come, first serve on the pickleball courts?
Correct. But whatever rules are posted that they'll follow like they do on the tennis courts, correct?
And right now they have like wait lists where people will actually sit and wait while others play. Is that gonna be?
So I'm gonna leave it up for commission to figure out how they want to do those rules. I will tell you, I drive home every day and 19th Avenue has 8 brand new courts and there are always people waiting there to play, no matter what time it is. So we will figure out a rule so that people rotate through and don't hog the courts and have private lessons because people want to play pickleball, especially in the nice summer weather. But I'll let commission kind of weigh in on what kind of rules and regulations they want to put in for those new courts.
Okay, good luck with that.
I'll do the research and present.
Another question, Fred?
Yeah, are the tennis courts of Granada getting striped for pickleball?
So the plan was when this gets done, to do the same thing of having put temporary shoe courts up or not at the same time. Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Great. Any other questions from council members? All right, all my questions have been asked, so thank you, everyone. So we're going to open this up to public comment now. So anyone, members of the public who'd like to comment in person, please go ahead and head to the podium here. If you're on Zoom and you'd like to comment, please go ahead and raise your hand. Not seeing anyone jumping up here in person. Do we have any hands up on Zoom?
We do not have hands raised on Zoom. Oh, actually, now we do.
Great.
Okay. From Jerry. Jerry, go ahead whenever you're ready.
I had to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's great. I spoke at the March 25th Parks Commission about the pickleball thing, and I wanted to thank Nick and the people, the design people, for taking those comments into consideration for the sound as directed more towards the northwest corner of the park and the residences. out there by Pixley and Redwood Avenue. I appreciate that. I recognize this is all work in progress. I'm glad to hear that eventually there'll be sort of review of how it all went and everything. I did want to ask about the sound wall stuff. How easy it is, how, like, if in the future it should be determined that maybe some more additional walls would could be a benefit for the area. How is that a potential thing? Again, I appreciate the extra wall that was put in now, but is it the sort of thing there, or maybe against the side of the tennis court? Are these potential improvements that could be done later down the line? And then I'll ask my second question now. I think I heard, and possibly incorrectly, but that the renderings for the skate park, that the walls that were shown in those renderings were not the wall that would be actually there. Do we have a representation of what the wall around the skate park would be? And thank you for taking my questions.
Great, thanks, Jerry. We're going to take any other public comment, and then once we close public comment, we'll ask our staff to address any questions that members of the public brought up. Do we have any other hands up on Zoom right now?
No additional hands raised on Zoom. Okay. We do have Amy Lapp, and before I call on her, I will say, read the comment that was received tonight. It was closer to 6 p.m. It was sent to Mayor Beckman only, but I have already put it on the website for the public to access. I won't put up the timer because it won't take me 3 minutes to read, but this comment is from Barry Cohen, who says, I'm writing to you to suggest that we need 4 pickleball courts and not just 2. The sport is growing so fast, it will all be used regularly. I've seen this at the courts in Marin City where all 4 courts are all used all the time. If we will go to the expense of doing this, let's be smart and proactive, planning for the future too, and make 4 courts and not just 2. We have the space to do this, and the cost ought not be too much higher to do this with 4 courts. Think ahead and how they will be needed. Thanks for your consideration. And then Amy, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say thank you to the council for your time. We really appreciate it. And to the staff for all of their hard and diligent work. They've helped us along through this process. They've been fabulous. And I want to say thanks to my board members that came tonight. I'm home with a sick kid, so I couldn't make it down there. Sorry about that. But I just wanted to reiterate, this extra space, if we can get this for the skate park, will really make a huge difference in the efficiency of the park. It will make a park that all users can have space to practice in. Right now, it's pretty small, and it's hard to get from transition, it's hard to transition between features. So this will create a lot more space to do that, and also let the more advanced skaters and the younger beginner skaters be in sort of the same area, or the moms who are just learning, But it will also, having a concrete poured park, I've said this before, will reduce noise significantly from what you have right now. And it will really increase the aesthetic of that corner of the park. And I believe will be a great asset to the community. It's big enough to have events at and competitions and get all sorts of people coming. So we're really excited about it. And thank you again for your time.
Thanks so much, Amy.
And then we have, I just received 2 emailed public comments from the same person, from Peter Chase. And he says, can you clarify, please, is the current quote unquote hitting wall being torn down? And then he also added, per the commenter's letter, I find that the use of the pickleball courts is not that high in volume. Only afternoons and weekends are the courts well used. I drive by the courts daily and do not see them often used. Thanks, Peter Chase. And we don't have any additional public comment.
Great. Well, thank you to everyone who gave public comment. We're going to close public comment now. And before we bring this back to council for discussion, I'll just ask staff to hit on a couple of those points that public commenters raised. So from Jerry, first question was, can additional sound barriers be added down the road if that is felt necessary?
Yeah, it wouldn't preclude it in the future. Obviously, they aren't cheap. I think just what we have shown is roughly 25, 30 grand and may only last 10 to 15 years. But it certainly could be added later, and they just kind of stitch it together.
Okay, thank you. And his other question was just if you could please clarify the nature of the skate park fence.
So yeah, I think there was a reference to skate park walls. So, I mean, we're not envisioning any new walls. I mean, the perimeter is going to look very similar to what it looks now, just a kind of short chain fence. Although the ramps themselves appear like they're almost in some ways creating a wall.
And I think the confusion was my comment, where the conceptual design showed a fence that's going to be different from what the city is going to be installing. So we're installing fences at the pickleball court and the skate park, and the 10-foot high fence.
Okay, so 10-foot high fence around the skate park as well.
Correct.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
I think we're still.
Maybe TBD on that.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. That's fine. Thank you. And then Peter's question was just if you could please clarify again what's going to happen with the ball wall.
Yeah, so the existing concrete ball wall will be removed. Without it, we cannot get two courts. And so that's why we're looking to construct a new ball wall on the south side of the courts. And so we'll still have one there and also the one over New Guns.
Perfect, thank you. So I think those were the questions from public comments, unless I missed any. So we'll open this up now to comments and discussion from council members, and we'll start on this side.
Well, before I get comments, one quick question. If the ball wall that's going to be inside the pickleball court, can people still play pickleball court while somebody's on the ball wall? Or is it one or the other?
I would think you can only play, so there's two courts. Someone could be playing pickleball on one side, and on the other side, you could be pickleball or ball wall, not both.
Okay, thanks. With that, I'll just give my comments. I can totally support the expansion of the skateboard park, and I can also support the pickleball courts. I think it's going to be a great addition to that part of the park. I want to say it'll modernize it, definitely upgrade it. I don't know why I get teary-eyed every time I hear Amy. You guys understand.
We do.
But I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I really do. From you. Total gratitude. You guys are great. Thank you. Plus, you guys act super fast. This project's been up. They approached you a year ago, a year and a half. So within a year or so, plus or minus, it's just super. It's like lightning quick. So I really appreciate that. Some of the comments I think I already made. I just worry a little bit about the sound barrier, the sound blanket. I know what you're saying. I just worry about because the way those echo, the color, which I already brought up, it just sidelines with Central Marin Police. I did have some concerns about eating up green space in Town Park because that's probably our largest asset. And once we eat up that green space, we can't get it back. It sounds like it is minimal. It's probably less than 1-2% the most. I just think going forward, we just have to be mindful of that. If other projects come up to us, that we're not eating green space, because again, once we take that, we're not going to be able to get it back unless we do some kind of mitigation. I think, Tim, just one recommendation I know I'm getting ahead of myself. I think you may have to look at a potential reservation system or a key type thing. I know I've played up in Nevada several times, and up there sometimes there's long waits, and they have 6 courts up there. We're only talking 2 here. And I think the only other formal pickleball courts are in Marin City or Sausalito. Larkspur uses tennis courts. After that, I think there's some in Sarahville, but I'm not sure about that. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think this is going to appeal to a broader area than just Corte Madera and Larkspur. So I would just, give that some consideration on thought. But again, I can support both. I think it was great that Lab Foundation came up with expanding the skateboard park. I think it's a great opportunity to do that. So again, I can support both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I agree that I can support the expansion of the skate park. I'm excited about it. I have a 2.5-year-old grandchild who loves to go in there and watch all the other kids go around, and I think it'll be an important part of him growing up to be able to spend some time there. So I'm looking forward to that. Just a couple comments on colors and little things. I love the idea of creating natural mounds for seating. It's a way to sort of landscape and still have it look nice, but have new function. And I really like also the idea of working the memorial benches program into this, because the more places there are for people to sit, I think it's just makes it that much nicer. I think a 10-foot high fence seems a little high and unnecessary. It'll feel like we're, locking those kids in there and not letting them out, and something weird about that. And then as far as the colors go, I have a longtime landscape contractor who says, people always try to hide stuff by painting it green. Well, guess what? Green is the most visible color there is. So bright green would not be a way to make it go away. I don't know what color makes it go away, but I hope we bring in a color consultant on that. And on the thing of the courts, I really like the more muted, the gray, blue color scheme, mainly because while bright colors look kind of cool when they're new, the more age and patina they get, the more they tend to look kind of worn out and tired. So I think a more muted color scheme would be nice. And I also don't agree that we should be doing more courts at this time. I think even though, Novato may have 6 and Marin City may have 4, we're a smaller town, and our job is not to provide pickleball for the whole county, but just to make these crazy guys happy.
All right, thank you. Fred, you have something?
Yeah, so just one more thought. Is it possible to get like the town's emblem on those courts anywhere? It's just food for thought.
I'm sure it's possible, so we can see what that comes.
Food for thought.
Food for thought.
All right.
Wow, some great ideas. So I want to first give a little side story. My little sister, who just turned 60, started taking skateboard lessons when she was like 10. So that gives you some idea of how long skateboarding has been around. And I think that investing in it, it has a long, long life ahead of it. And I think it's great that we're going to contribute to enhancing the life it's definitely going to have. And she's in great shape, by the way. So I do completely support both of these projects. And as far as it might be interesting to ask if it makes any difference if pickleball players are up for this, but I don't know. And regarding noise, I think that if we live in a town as opposed to out on our own, noise is just something we're going to have to expect. It's the sounds of life. And I think that we all kind of have to, take that in our stride. And also the park is not open all night. So it's going to be most around the day, which probably hearing pickleball over the cars on Tamalpais is, it's got a lot of competition there. So I think a lot of the things that we're talking about are going to be worked out at a later date. We're going to hear them again. So it just suffices to say onward.
All right. So I'm really excited about the idea of branded coloring, to the town branding, or just in general. I think it's a good idea to standardize overall surface coatings, like paint, everything, signage, just to become so it's clear that this is a Parks and Rec, right? And I think I've mentioned it in different formats in the past, but I like that you brought that up again. It's just, if we use it, let's try to use it everywhere. The other thing is I don't think camouflaging by using colors of dirt and plants like in the walls actually works, right? Like I had this discussion on planning commission with the village, right? They painted it all taupey brown, like it would match with the mountains, and it reads like a giant mountain. they painted it white and blue, and it actually feels light and airy now, and actually is less visible, but the perception was that it would, and so I think, based on that, right, like if it was a nice light white or bluish, it might actually lighten up that space, which over there, because of the shade and stuff, it actually feels dark and damp most of the time. So a little bit of color and play might actually help it. To not feel like a dingy, like that's why people don't always aggregate over in that specific area, as those bushes are too big and it stays too damp all the time, right? So like we want to really refresh it. The other thing is my kids, they've all used it with the push bikes, the scooters, and later skateboarding. I don't like the chain link fence. I feel like it's a safety concern for me usually. I don't know, I had a friend that had his thumb ripped off when he was a young kid doing scooter bike, like motorized scooters, and hit the chain link fence. And so I have like PTSD about that. And so I just wonder if there's like a little bit of a crash wainscot that we could do down below, like a crash rail. And then also the other thing is we, move forward with the Parks and Rec plan and everything, is there some kind of branded fencing that we could standardize across the board, that creates a nice, unique look that defines our Parks and Rec offerings, right? Those were just a few things that came up in my mind that I wanted to share. And other than that, love the park, love the pickleball. We do have 4 courts. There's going to be 2 there and 2 on the other side of town, which I think is equitable and accessible, just to remind everyone. That's all I had to say.
Great. Thank you, Charles. I'm super excited about both of these projects as well. So grateful to the Scotty Lab Foundation, and Amy, I know you're with us online for this incredible gift to our community, and really excited for this project to happen. Really excited for the pickleball courts too. I think both seem really well thought out. So impressive work to staff and the foundation and the consultants who were involved on this. Yeah, super excited about it. And with that, happy to invite a motion on resolution number 13, 2024.
I can go ahead and make the motion to adopt resolution number 13-2024, thereby accepting the town projects report and approving the town park skateboard park renovation, expansion, and installation of proposed new pickleball court projects.
I second.
Councilmember Casissa?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ravazio?
Yes.
Mayor Beckman?
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries.
great. Thank you very much. Thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. All right, we're going to move on tonight to item 5D, which is presentation and discussion of the Parks and Rec budget and direction to staff on funding source and amount for our recreation scholarship program. Excellent. Thank
We
you.
have, very brief introduction.
Yeah, I was looking.
Becca, are you gonna, thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. Great to meet you. Good to have you on the team.
I have the PowerPoint.
Hey, don't forget.
And I got it.
Got a fingerprints all over this budget.
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Good.
So just, I'll do a quick introduction, and this is really going to be a presentation, by Daria and Tim. But if you recall, at our strategic planning workshop on January 30th, 2024, and I think there has been this has come up in the past at prior meetings as well. The council really wanted to get some more information about the Park and Rec Fund, which is essentially the Park and Rec budget. And I didn't want to take that time at the strategic planning meeting to sort of go into the details of that. And also talk about the scholarship program. There's been a lot of questions about that and how to adequately fund and how to adequately resource sort of the program for the needs that we've seen over the last couple of years. And so, as discussed, when we recapped the strategic planning session, this was one of the items we said we would come back to the council with and have a discussion, presentation. There's really 2 items here on regarding the town's park and recreation departmental budget. Daria is going to sort of give an overview of that, provide some background there of the Park and Rec Fund. There's been some additional information was just handed out to you now as well, which really is just the budget that was adopted last June and the Rec Fund as it's explained in the adopted budget. And then Tim really is going to handle more of the scholarship program, and there's some item there where we're asking for direction on, just in terms of how to adequately, again, resource that going forward into this next fiscal year. So really providing some guidance that we can come back to the council when we talk really about the budget item. We have some direction there, and then hopefully it will just already be in the budget and we get the direction and we don't have to talk about it again then. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Daria. We're expecting questions, of course, and here to answer those and any other direction you want to provide on this time. So thanks, Daria.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks, Tim, for both Tim and Daria and Rebecca as well for working on this the most, especially. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam, and good evening, Town Council. As Adam mentioned, I've been asked to give some background and context about the Recreation Fund before Tim gives his report. And so just as a little review, the Recreation Fund was established in order to track revenues and expenditures related to the parks and recreation programs. And prior to the 22-23 fiscal year, the fund only included expenditures and revenue related to the recreation programs, not the director's salary or any sort of operating costs associated with the community center. And the reason we call this a recreation fund and it's separate from, is because it's separated from the operating fund where the other town departments are located. The other town departments are in the operating fund, such as administration, finance, public works, engineering, community development, and they're involved in the day-to-day operations of the town and are funded for the most part by taxes. The recreation department includes mainly enrichment and sports and other programs that are funded by fees. And it does roll up into the general fund in the financial statements, but we segregate it on our books just to assist with tracking and so that we can provide reports. So the handouts that I gave you, the little charts, those are intended to show how the town has changed the accounting with respect to the recreation department over the years and is attempting to show all the costs associated with the recreation department. Not included are anything to do with maintenance, parks and maintenance salaries, for example, are not included. But on the first handout, this chart here, what I'm trying to show there is that traditionally before the 22-23 fiscal year, there was a transfer from the general fund each year. And that the general fund paid directly for some operating expenses. So in that first column that says general fund operating expenditure, those are mainly related to the park and recreation, the director's salary, some clerical help, as well as utilities for the community center, janitorial costs, computer costs, that sort of thing. And then in 22-23, those were all moved over into the recreation fund, at council direction to try to show everything in one place. The third column that says transfer from general fund to recreation fund, that was usually made in order to cover the deficit from the operating programs. And you can see in the 2021 fiscal year, or 2021-22 fiscal year, there was nothing needed to transfer because they had actually a surplus. Other items shown on here there are some parks and recreation salaries paid out of the Corte Madera sales tax fund. And then you can see that in the current year, we have budgeted $30,000 for scholarships from the Corte Madera sales tax fund. And in the prior year, the general fund paid for some scholarships. And these scholarships that I'm referring to are the summer care scholarships. So as you can see here, we're trying to show all of the expenses in one place. And on the second page, so you can see before I go to the second page, that last column there shows the total contributions from other funds to the recreation funds, in addition to what is paid directly from the recreation fund. And then the next page just shows the beginning balance, the revenue collected directly from the recreation fund, the transfer in from the general fund, the general fund expenditures, and then the ending balance. And of course, we're not finished with the current fiscal year, so that's just a projection. And then I've also given you a copy of what was adopted in last June for this year's budget. And this is just information about the recreation fund, its programs, how many employees are employed by the recreation fund. And then beginning on page 71, all of the revenues and expenses, just not segregated by program, just by type of revenue and expense. And then starting on page 73 by program, where it says general fund, those are the operating costs that were previously paid by the general fund. But in opening up, it couldn't change it, so it still said general fund. But the other departments there are listed: active adults, age-friendly intergenerations, and childcare, et cetera, all the different programs. So this is just intended to be just an overview to try to provide some context of the fund itself. And
I would say that we continually, Dari and I and Tim, continually try to sort of tweak the accounting of the fund itself and what gets actually incorporated into the fund to try to show that more complete picture. It's not perfect in terms of showing all the revenues and the expenditures that essentially would are sort of related to Park and Recreation Department activities and programs. I think Gary mentioned this, for example, we're not showing an expenditure of the field maintenance, which is done by Public Works maintenance staff. That's still covered by the general fund, but it's getting more and more accurate as we go on year over year and trying to still just watch that and see how we can improve it.
Okay. Excellent. First, let me say that we're so thankful for Dari and her team. They are always willing to ask questions, and we strive to learn more and more about this budget, and I think we've got it in a good spot. So I really appreciate all of our work on this. So I think one of my very first presentations to Park and Rec Commission was a scholarship program. We didn't have a formal program when I first started. It was kind of loosey-goosey and willy-nilly, and we kind of said, hey, I need a formal process, so we kind of tracked how it works. We created that formal process after that September 26th commission meeting, kind of went to a dedicated page on the town website, had kind of a one-page simple application to fill out online and kind of some basic criteria, how we allocated funds, eligibility and distribution of funds. We first started, we basically allocated 80% to Corte Madera residents and Larkspur residents and students of the district, and 20% to Greater Marin. Eligibility was basically people needed to prove or submit paperwork to see where they fell in the income level to qualify for scholarships. Then we distributed funds for youth scholarships, $300 per individual and $900 per family at a flat rate of adults. When we did this program, we kind of surveyed the surrounding town, city, and kind of said, hey, what's the common features and all this, and kind of put this together. And then a council reviewed and adopted in 2022 of October. We have come back to commission a year later. Next slide, please. We had a presentation on January, kind of a full year review of kind of what have we learned and how do we modify and create it to be better. A couple things. One, we looked at our applications. They were all from Corte Madera and Larkspur residents or Larkspur Corte Madera schools members. We didn't have anybody outside asking for scholarships. The one they did have was for competitive soccer, but everybody else who asked for basic programs in childcare or in summer camps or classes was coming from those three funds. We increased the minimum amount per youth from $300 to $500. We increased the allocation per family from $600 to $1,000 per family, and basically increased the maximum per adult from $100 to $200 as a flat rate. The only big change was basically we realized that soccer is so huge that basically they asked for their applications and scholarships in May for the fall season, but it made sense to coordinate with Department of Soccer Club and Department of Newly Formed Foundation to figure out before these people commit to these large sums of money for comp soccer, rec soccer, let's give them a full picture of what the town could sponsor and then what the foundation could also sponsor. If they knew going in, and maybe soccer is $2,000, I can get a $1,000 scholarship. Can I afford the other amount before all of a sudden, hey, I can't afford it, and then basically have to call the team. The scholarship program again will be continued reviewed by Parks and Rec and vetted as it goes along. But again, it is a nice process where we can track some more things we haven't tracked in the past. Have a true idea of how much scholarships we're giving away each year and how much we are allowing these kids to participate in these programs. Next slide, please. This was the breakdown that was presented to the Park and Rec Commission of the scholarship award in 2023, starting with the students on the Corte Madera schools or summer camp program who needed extra care, from Camp Corte Madera to childcare, enrichment, competitive soccer, rec soccer, and senior classes. Just a breakdown of how many scholarships we awarded and the total funds awarded for that year in 2023. Next slide. Discussion tonight. We basically anticipated a comparable need for scholarships in 23-24. Actually, should 24-25. Sorry, that's wrong. As that we obviously have been well known and people know how to work the process, how to ask the application, basically connections with staff. That's with school district personnel to say they have a program, fill it out. They'll get back to you. They'll tell you if they're able to do your scholarship or not. Basically, this time requesting up to $30,000 to cover anticipated requests. Additional funding could support unanticipated scholarship needs during the course of the year. Be utilized at the discretion of myself as the Park and Rec Director if we all of a sudden have a huge influx of people who need childcare or summer camp care to be able to do that. Department has historically received additional funds from the Corte Madera Community Foundation, Corte Madera Lions Club, and Corte Madera Women's Club, specifically for Camp Corte Madera. So when I first came on board, these clubs gave money just for kids to take summer camp. It was the only thing they gave. We basically reviewed the applications. We let people know, hey, this person needs childcare from this to this day. Can you fund it? And additionally, it's been between $7,000 and $10,000. Additionally, they would give us each year to cover that cost for those specific camps. And then basically tonight, looking for direction, obviously regarding the 2024 budget process, the plan going forward for scholarships in general, and for the planning for myself and my staff who work with for the budget.
Yeah, so I think we're again here to answer questions. I will say if you go back to the discussion slide, this specifically, I know over the last couple of years there's been some additional needs during the years that were unanticipated, and sort of that's part of the discussion. I certainly would like to have the ability for Tim as Park and Rec Director to, if needs arise during the year, I think we could increase that amount if the council agrees, could increase the amount of $30,000 a little bit more than that in order to essentially accommodate sort of unanticipated things that may happen during the course of the year. Just for, as an example, we had some children over those last year who were basically the school notified us, but all notified others of some children who could use some access to our childcare programs, after school care programs. And sort of this will allow the ability for us to sort of fund those specific needs as they arise during the course of the year if we had some additional funds. So I think that's something we'd like to hear some feedback on. Certainly, as we've talked about, we just had the sales tax report. I think Councilmember Casissa pointed out, the percentage of funds that are really used towards youth and senior program out of the entire sales tax fund is pretty small percentage. So we're not talking about a large increase. If we go that direction, that could actually support some of these unanticipated expenses going forward. So with that, your question.
Great. Well, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Daria. We'll take questions from council members now, and we'll start at this end. No questions.
Okay, my question is, So the additional funds would come from the sales tax if we go that way?
I would recommend that. I know the staff report was sort of left it as a discretion. There's obviously other sources, but that, I think, again, going back to our report on the sales tax, the balance that we have some ability to increase that through the sales tax.
And
that was, sorry, I should say that was one of the specific areas from a policy perspective, with the sales tax that we had told, the council decided that we should be spending some of those funds towards youth, seniors, as well as all the infrastructure that needs disaster preparedness as well.
And what's been the most that has either been requested or granted in scholarships that you can remember?
So we will get requests for year-round care, but the current policy and approved by commission was they get up to a certain amount and then they have to either work with a payment plan or something else. So families could ask for $5,000 to get you through the whole year of after-school programming. A lot of times when people ask, we try to find some of the resources, like we really work close with the Marin Child Care Center, Child Care Council, sorry, to get them funding and kind of work through that. And a lot of times families are able to do that. And we work with them to make sure all the paperwork's filled on time, everybody gets taken care of, and then reimbursements made. So, I mean, the most we've given is probably $2,000 over the course of a year. But I mean, there are people who would absolutely say, hey, I need care after school every day because I'm a working parent, but I can't currently, without being, flexible, or more. But there's definitely a need where people will ask, I'm a working parent, I need care till 6 o'clock. Is there more scholarship you can give with this?
Okay. And do you have numbers of just the number of requests total as opposed to how many you were able to fulfill?
So we will always give some amount of scholarship. It may not be what they're looking for, the full amount to cover it, but we'll be able to give everybody's in quarter or large for a student some scholarship to get through. Obviously, when the program is expensive and you childcare for year round, that's only a drop in the bucket or a portion, but we do work with them to say, here are their options, how do we help you, or how do we work a payment plan to go forward. But like Adam was saying, is some discretion if there are those extreme cases where these need extra care because of this thing, can I have the ability to allocate more funds for those certain things?
Yeah, I'm trying to fish for a real number.
No.
I'm trying to give you what you need, Tim.
So I guess the challenge is a parent will ask and we'll award $1,000, let's say, but that only covers, let's say, a week, but they would absolutely take the whole year. So it's like, is it multiplied times the 6 requests we got, and you're talking about $30,000 above whatever. So I think it's just going to rotate as people age out, who go to middle school, and then you have kindergarten come in, so it's totally different. So we only have really a first year data of looking at this, where we've never had it before, so we have a better idea. But I think it's, as we're getting more well-known and people understand the health of application and work with the school very closely, we're going to get more and more requests. So I think it's like, we start this process and it's like at the mid-year review, we go to Adam and say, hey, we've allocated or used all this. Is there more money in that discretionary fund, or in that sales tax fund, we could allocate more for these kids to finish up the year?
Okay. Yeah, so what I'm trying to get is like, if people, how much, so people don't ask for more than, they already know what the ceiling is when they
do what they do. Some people will ask, and I've had people found some extra money sometimes. For example, we had a senior who her flat rate was $100. Able to find something where she could keep taking that yoga class because we were able to find additional funds to get her through the next 3 months of work. So we work with that so that, the importance of that. But a lot of people know what the ceiling is and then know to when to reapply. And additional funds come available, absolutely reach back out to them and say, hey, with additional funds, we get scholarship you for this amount more.
Okay, all right, thank you. That explains how the process works.
You question?
Oh, like a million.
Why don't you pick your handful of favorites?
The big one is, so for many, many years, probably even a couple decades, there's been a lot of discussion at the council level and at Parks and Rec about the desire to make Parks and Rec fully self-supporting, that we were always going for expenses and revenues cancel each other out, and we end up even Steven. And I think what we're seeing is that due to wealth inequality and things happening in our community, it's getting harder and harder to do that and still serve the underserved, which, I think is our sort of our first mission. So my question is, is the tax, it sounds like to me, that Adam's hit on something, that the sales tax is how we create something more permanent, to systematize these subsidies and just understand that we're not going to break even on Parks and Recreation, at least unless we do some really innovative fundraising efforts, or we create new events that bring in more revenue, or find some other ways. It seems like, do you think we can and should do this? And Adam, are we okay with not being a fully self-supporting Parks and Rec department?
Yeah, well, and one of the, this is helpful because I think some of us have not been around for those initial discussions in terms of the direction from the council, in terms of what is the real goal for the Park and Rec Fund and the Park and Rec Department. One of the reasons why I think we did also pull this out of the budget, because there is a paragraph in there that says, the goal of the Recreation Fund is to be self-supporting with the exception of general administrative functions, salary benefits of the director, front desk support, legal costs, internet services, some maintenance. So it's clearly the goal is not 100%. We're not going for 100% here. Frankly, and as you can see, I think we're achieving that when you look at the end of the year balance sheet and you're saying like, oh, well, we actually have running a little bit of a deficit there. I think it's maybe close to 10%, and maybe it's a little less than 10%. Actually, it's about 9% or 8% or something like that. So that's what's the direction we feel we're trying to live up to. But if it's different and we should do something, the scholarship, for example, and I think relates in some ways, but we recognize that this is an area where it's coming out of the general fund measure, or the sales tax fund essentially, which is rolled up to the general fund. And the way to account for that, though, is to show that as essentially a revenue into the Park and Rec Fund from sales tax, and then you'll see it it's sort of an accounting issue. It's not really I don't know how much it really relates to this goal setting of being cost recovery. Like I'm saying, it's more of accounting. We could allocate $100,000 from the sales tax fund to scholarships, as long as we show it coming in as revenue somehow in the fund going forward. It will sort of be neutral from the standpoint of cost recovery. So I don't know if that helps answer that. I would certainly, I think for our purposes, if there is specific direction or for guidance around this cost recovery model that's different than how we're operating today, we'd love to hear it. But I think we're trying it, what's stated as the goal now is sort of how we're operating, and yet there's still an opportunity to sort of bring in resources from the general fund to support some of the programs and activities in the Park and Rec Fund itself. So please go ahead.
If I could just point out one thing on the chart, you can see that the total contributions from other funds, the general fund, you see it's becoming less and less with each year. So all things considered, the Parks and Recreation Department is becoming closer and closer to being self-supporting over the years.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay. I have a couple of questions, and I'll have more comments related to cost recovery, because I sat on Park and Rec, so I'll give you my take on it, but I'll wait till comments. So you brought that chart, so we're running about 290,000 or so deficit in Park and Rec.
That's what we think this year. Yes, that's what we're projecting this year. Yes.
Okay, and it still is down from 569. It's down. It's been cut almost half.
Yeah, it's been going down.
Okay. Do you know why it's been cut in half?
I don't,
Okay.
I don't know. I think part of the reason was, in the past couple of years when they implemented the childcare program, that brought in a lot of money. And I think the soccer program has brought in a lot of money.
Programmatically, the programs bring in enough revenue to
Yeah.
offset some of that. Our facilities don't, but our programs do, where childcare was a big thing where we hadn't had that. And that's, you know, a huge enrollment and a huge asset that definitely sways that, brings that cost down.
But programs, they're not at 100% cost recovery, correct?
Some of them.
They're close. I think overall, like all programs together, they're probably pretty close. I think some are different, yes, but if you look at the whole of all programs, they're more cost recovery than you are for facility rentals.
So
Because
when you-
there's more cost for facilities.
And on facility, are you talking about community center, picnic tables? What are you, I'm just trying to get an idea.
Facilities, it would be community center, it would be picnic rentals, it would be any type of field rentals, all that stuff is not where, it's not 100% cost recovery. They're not, because we don't talk about some of the associated costs with public works work in the field, so that's not in there.
Right.
But overall, programs are doing much better in cost recovery than facilities, and that's probably the norm across most park and rec departments, where your revenue comes in from all of your classes and your programs, but not in your facility rentals, because there's so much cost in upkeep of those facilities and maintenance of those facilities.
Okay, so theoretically, there's no park and rec departments that are running 100% cost recovery.
I haven't seen any.
Okay, I didn't think so.
No.
I just want to ask that.
If they are, it's an imaginable fairyland, but no, I haven't seen them, sorry.
No, I didn't, again, I'll throw in the comments, as far as I know, it's like,
Yeah.
you just can't do it unless you start overpricing programs, but then you're pricing out people and they won't be able to do the program. It doesn't make sense.
The only cost person I've ever seen to do is when they basically contracted out the entire thing. That's the only one I've ever seen someone do, because then it's literally, there's no other fees, it's just contract fees.
Okay.
That's not feasible for most cities.
Switching to the scholarship program, I'm throwing out numbers because we have to start somewhere.
Yep.
If we upped it from 30 to 40 or 50, how much does that help you? Because I don't want to do a thing where we're overfunding something. And at the end of the year, we're leaving money on the table. And it almost seems like it's almost like a pilot program where you had last year, you'll have this year, and not this fiscal year, the following fiscal year, we should have a better idea of what you need. But it's 40, and I'm throwing out number, 40 to 50 if that's coming from the town. And then you add in what you're getting from the Community Foundation, Lions and Women's Club. Does that help and does that go a lot further? Because again, I don't want to end up overfunding and we're start talking 100,000 or 75,000. To me, it's too far out.
I think it's twofold. One, it's, you know, if we stick to the guidelines of the current policy, or be able to add more funds, that obviously will get to that point. I don't know for sure if the foundation, those guys are going to give us the funds again.
Right.
That's obviously something we ask for every year. We've been talking about, you know, the kids that they need and they identify. But I think that in that 50 range, plus if we're talking about the other 10,000 of those groups, yes, and I have some flexibility to add more scholarships, you're going to absolutely use that money. Because people like, you know, I have 6 or 7 families who've asked for year-round care, but I can only give them X amount of money right now if I follow the policy. Giving some more wiggle room to say, hey, I can give you either a payment plan or something else to extend that, absolutely use that money.
Okay, but how do you weigh that out? If you have a family that comes to you in the beginning of the year, and you give them, I'm making up the number, like $5,000, that gives them the whole year, but then all of a sudden you have January, how do you kind of equal that out so you're not running out of money and families that are coming in later don't get the benefit?
So I think what we did was we had that first number, and then basically when we had initially, we would go back and say, are there additional money that we could allocate to? But I think right now the timeline is, I believe it's August 1st is the school year request, and May 1st is the summer request. So families get me all the requests, and then I usually have some discretionary fund left, but I haven't used it all. So in case I do get that case of, hey, I just moved into wherever I need some funds, I have some additional funds to allocate that to that. So I don't spend it all on May 1st, because I know I'll have some that'll come the next allocation cycle.
Okay, and same thing, you don't spend it all on August 1st, same thing, because you're guys, okay, good, sure, you are trying to spread that out.
Correct.
So based on what you just said, we're looking at 50?
I'm not gonna, I mean, I think if you're giving us me flexibility to award more scholarships above the current amount, people are actually gonna use it. So I think, if you, looking at, in my head, the people who are in childcare or summer camp, who have asked for a scholarship, we've given them a minimum amount. If I allocate that out, it's probably another 20 to 25,000. Because if we're gonna let them have a larger amount of money for scholarships, then you're gonna need more. But if we keep to the policy, then it's about $30,000, give or take, if the foundation gives an extra 10 for summer camps.
So do we need to change the policy?
Well, that's a bigger discussion. I mean, I think right now it's saying that I have some discretion if the family's in true need and say, hey, I literally can't afford, I meet I barely qualify at all. Can you give it more scholarship so I can have my kids in summer camp? Or even childcare all summer so I can keep working, that's flexibility, I have to award more money.
Okay, I can't get an answer, that's what me ask you a different way. If we go up to 50, how much more does that help?
Well, I think you're gonna allow those kids to be funded for the full year.
Okay.
I think that's those 5 or 6 who have applied right now, for example, just childcare, they can be funded for the full year if I want to. Now, that's obviously assuming the same number comes back again next year.
Right, it's all involved.
Yeah, absolutely, when kid ages out or kindergarten comes in.
Okay.
But you could, in theory, give somebody 4 or 5 kids, maybe 6 kids, a full ride for the entire school year.
Okay, so we're potentially looking at 50.
I'm not.
No,
I think without changing the, yes.
I'm just trying I just don't want to overfund. I don't want to start talking 75 or 100,000.
Yeah.
I don't want to overfund it and again, leave money on the table. And I'm just trying to find the number because we could be here for the next 4 hours talking about numbers.
Right.
I'm just trying to get something out there.
Well, yeah.
I don't know what your
I think
thoughts
it's a
are
good
about
start. I think it's a good starting point, and there's always, again, there's other points along the years, because this is an actual real-time thing that happens during the course of the year.
Yeah.
And situations change. So there may be a time when there's an ability we need to come back or adjust things in the mid-year budget revision, whatever it is. But I think starting point, that sounds like a good place to start.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, so I think what I feel like I'm seeing is multiple council members, myself included, being a little bit confused about what the ask is. So if the staff proposal is 30 grand, but please, I guess, also give Tim the discretion to increase it, which I'm happy to do, then the natural question is increase it to what? If it's increase it to 50, fine. Why isn't the proposal, please give Tim 50 grand? So are we missing something?
So my thing would be just, are you guys okay with me having the discretion to work with those families to give them more money? Because right now, if I follow the law of the thing, it's you're capped at this until your next application comes.
Okay, I have my answer ready for comment.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from council members? Okay, sounds good. So we'll open this item for public comment. Any members of the public who would like to comment on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand via Zoom. All of our in-person friends have left us. So
Patty.
excellent.
Hello, I brought this up the last time I was before the council, but the $100 a year, which is now being proposed to be $200 a year, wouldn't even pay for a pickleball class. So it seems like 99% of the funding is going to children and the adults are left in the lurch. So I don't know if this is because we're thinking that we're going to have another option for seniors to participate in activities, or if they're just not being addressed. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Patty. Any other hands up?
No other hands raised or emailed public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we're going to close public comment and bring this item back to the council for discussion, and we'll start on this item.
Yeah, thanks for a good report, and I definitely understand a little bit more how we're almost breaking even now. So it's legible to me, and I appreciate that. I've heard other council members say that they really want to provide where there's a need, right? And so what we're discussing is a cap doesn't really talk about the needs, but is it that we give him a discretion, or ultimately, if you feel like there's a bigger ask, I mean, we meet twice a month, right? Is there an opportunity to come back and say, we've had so much great demand, and these people this is how they're qualifying, are you comfortable with releasing more, right? Like, and that's what you're saying, the policy doesn't allow that? Or if we give you the discretion now, we'd still like to come back and kind of authorize it, so to me, I personally think that it's nice that council cares about doing that, would want to know that we're being able to do that. So.
You want to answer that?
No.
Yeah. Well, so I think what we're trying to do, if we can get the direction now, we'll build that into the budget for the next fiscal year.
The 30,000.
Plus if we're going above for the discretionary, basically, yeah, additional money, so up to 50,000, which is, would be helpful as we just discussed to have that discretion during the course of the year. So then during the course of the year, these things sort of get funded. We have that in the budget already. And really the process, I think Tim has been working with the Park and Rec Commission on this during the course of the year, not only with the scholarship program, but obviously there are any tweaks to that program. You did the review in January of this year, you do another evaluation January of the next year, and so forth. So I think it's a one-time, if we get the direction now, we can build that into the budget, and I don't think
because you might not even draw
come
down on
back
that.
to,
Okay.
if that was the question. The idea is we're not coming back, we certainly can report on it if that's of interest.
So you anticipate more, but so what I'm saying is if we just say, you guys already worked this out, it's to the letter of the, like 30,000 is what we should be allocating, right? But we may need more, and we don't want to leave families out or seniors or whoever, right? That's why I'm saying if we say 30,000 and then we identify that we need more, and that goes back to the question of if you needed more in the first place, is the real question, hey, this is what we think the letter of the law says, but it's just.
It's not letter of the law, no, there's no law, it's, truth be told, I think, look, here, I think Tim was, sort of looking at what the real need was based on the guidelines from the policy that he had.
Okay. Policy.
We came back and I sort of, during the course of discussing this up, I sort of am recommending that we actually go beyond and look at a discretionary aspect that Tim can use above the 30,000 if unanticipated needs arise during the course of the year, so that we don't have to sort of scramble for additional funding.
But so that's the thing is did Councilman Fred just come up with like a number out of the blue versus a research number? So if we say we're comfortable with you finding out what the more research like number is.
I think we can do that between now and the budget, but I think that's in our assessment, that looks like about the right number as a starting point for the next.
But if we give you the flexibility, like, do we feel comfortable to basically allow staff to define what that is, knowing that they are hearing that there's from a policy standpoint, the council wants to expand it? That's what I think I'm most comfortable with instead of just a target number, because that allows them the flexibility to aggregate the entire budget impacts across multiple considerations and find out, not digging into infrastructure budgets or salaries or, but still trying to, give as much as possible back to the people that need it the most, right? And so that's what I'm comfortable with, not a specific number, but to trust in staff to do the research to really manage the city correctly. So.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, boy. Okay, so let me just figure out what that $50,000 number meant. That doesn't mean 50 plus 30. That means 50.
Yeah.
You're so much more generous than I was thinking. I'll just give another $6,000. But anyway, because of this idea of knowing that you can always come back if you see, the till running low. But I would be if everyone else is feeling fine with the 50,000, I think that's fine. But they would not have to come back and, justify it. It was like that pool of money is there. You use it your discretion. Even if something's left on the table, that just means it would roll over, right? Okay. I'm good with that.
All right, thank you.
Good. And I too am on this page. I think we can trust staff to take that additional funding and use it wisely. It would be nice to have a report. I'd love to know at the end of each year, how many needs did we not fulfill? How much would we actually need in order to meet the needs of this part of our, community. Couple things though, I don't feel comfortable with the town or the school district asking the Lions and the Community Foundation, and who's the other, who's the third one? The Women's Club. These organizations are raising money, literally one drink at a time, one hot dog at a time, and for them to be our funding source for these needed subsidies, it just doesn't seem fair to the community, we raise those monies to give to the scout troops, to the people who don't really have any alternatives for funding. So that's one reason I really want to add this extra funding in there, is so that we don't have to go with hat in hand to our community organizations, at least not so often. And then my other question is, I understand why with the kids, it's about the school district. So anybody who's a resident or student who attends the Larkspur Corte Madera School District, they're all treated the same. But when it comes to adults, there are many adult programs in Larkspur that do not count Corte Madera residents as residents. For instance, their community garden program. If you live in Corte Madera, you cannot have a community garden plot. So to answer Patty's question about doing a better job for adults, maybe our adult scholarships, our adult subsidies are for Corte Madera residents. There doesn't seem to be the same compelling reason to include Larkspur as there is with the school kids. Maybe I'm missing something there, but I just think, we could just say that's for Corte Madera. And then the only other thing that I've seen other communities do, I was actually reading online today, is and maybe this is something to just think about for the future, is more of a sliding scale approach. We know that parents here, I know from being a grandparent looking for a babysitter, people are paying $25 an hour or $30 an hour for one child. And I know that our rates for after-school care are $9 an hour. So for some people, that's an incredible bargain. And for other people, who are making minimum wage, it's something they cannot pay. So I think if you were to set the base rate higher, but then allow people to check a box that's lower, you get more revenue overall. Because I do think people who make more money in this town are willing to check a box. Would you contribute an extra $3 an hour to support those in need? I think you get a lot of those box checks. We used to get them in CYO volleyball all the time. We funded all of our scholarships on extra monies that came in from people who were willing to contribute more. So that kind of creative fundraising, I think, could help us long term. But other than that, I think I really appreciate all the information. I know this came about pretty quickly, and it's starting to make sense. It's been a convoluted cattywampus budgeting thing with Parks and Rec, but it's starting to make sense. Thank you.
Thanks. One quick question. What do we charge seniors for classes?
Depends what class it is. So if it's a yoga class, it's $5. Some of the classes at ARP are a little higher. It depends on what the class is.
Okay.
Most of them are the lower end for charging.
Okay.
Pickleball is probably the only one that's a high end class because it's an open ball, it's not just seniors.
Okay, and why did we only give $200 in scholarships to seniors?
It was just the flat rate that a lot of the cities had done for adults, that for seniors, it was more that most of their scholarship programs were tailored towards youth and for people who needed care after school. And a lot of cities don't do scholarships for adults. It's literally just the youth program. We were one of the few who added adults into it.
Okay, all right, thanks. Getting back to the topics. I'm okay with the 15,000, especially since I threw the number out. I think I have faith in that with Adam and Tim, that you guys have a feel for that number. And like I said before, I don't want to overfund it. And then if you can just monitor, come back to us. And I think the following fiscal year, I think we'll have a much better idea. Going back to the whole thing with cost recovery, I'm going to split it into two parts. I think one part we have programming. I think what you almost need to do, we will never be 100% cost, you're laughing. We're never going to be 100% cost recovery. I think it's impossible to get to it. I don't think we should be there. I think you're going to have to model it like 60, 70, 80, 90%, those tiers, and see where that falls out. And I think on the community center, you're gonna have to figure out how much money theoretically we're losing in the sense that I know Lions get it free, women's group, whoever, how much you think we're losing out. And part of this project gonna have to be a discussion with Park and Rec Commission. There's gonna have to be a number that I'm gonna say we're willing to eat. If it's 200, I don't know the number. You know, if you look at last year, I'll round up, it's 290,000 that as a council in a town, we're willing to accept that loss in order to promote those community groups, that program, because I know employees, Central Marin Police, Larkspur District employees, I think they get 25% off some of the fees also. But you're gonna have to figure out, there's a number there somewhere, I don't know what it is, that we feel comfortable with, that we can go, we're willing to accept this to promote recreation and those types of activities in our community.
It also includes school employees. It is something we are tracking for this year. We never tracked before to say how much really is that, so we have an idea, because it's never been tracked before.
Right, and that's gonna be the key to this, is the data piece of it.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
programming, I think, maybe a little bit more easier, because again, you can do the modeling.
Okay.
But you need the data to figure out where you need to go with it. But again, I think the goal in that thing should be changed, because again, there's no way it's 100%. And I don't even think that was ever the intent. That's it.
Excellent, thank you. All right, let's be out of here by 9. So I think on the scholarships, funding source, good with sales tax fund, happy to go with staff recommendation on that amount. I agree with Charles. I feel like I don't know enough to, come up with a number. I'm happy to delegate to staff. If you think 30 is not cutting it, that's fine. Obviously this can't take over the budget, but I think we've got room to give a little bit more.
That's what I was laughing about, is if Fred proposed it, it's really 30,000. For 30,000.
Pretty dirty.
It's furry, it's not clear.
It's a time of night.
Okay, so that's that. High level, I think like on the question of cost recovery, I don't think that that's like I don't think there's any there in that, like, I don't, it's never going to be cost recovery, as we said. B, just high level, like a government operates by raising taxes and then spending those taxes on programs and services. So I think it's for us to decide whether we want to be providing more services than we can reasonably raise through like service fees and those types of things. And I don't think we should arbitrarily limit that by the amount of revenue that those things can bring in, because there's a limit to how much revenue your programs and amenity rentals can bring in. And I wouldn't want that to be like an arbitrary limit on what we decide we want to provide for the community. Obviously, the town overall as a whole does have to be cost recovery. But like, that's our job, right? Is to balance like the services that we want to provide against all of our other priorities. And I think, I don't feel that we've gotten anything out of having this kind of like illusory cost recovery goal that we're always chasing, but like is not actually even possible. So that's kind of my thought on that. I do want to thank just the Community Foundation, the Lions and the Women's Club for what they've done already on scholarships. Unlike Pat, I don't have any problem going to them asking for additional contributions if they want to make it. If they don't, that's totally fine. We've got, we're a big town. We've got our own money, so we can provide. But I think if those organizations do want to provide charity in that way, it is welcomed and hugely appreciated. The last thing I would just say on the scholarship program is even if it goes up to like 50,000, that's still very small for the town of Corte Madera, and it is transformative for the individuals and families that make use of it. So I just wanted to highlight, I think that this is at the end of it, like, I don't want us to lose sight of the forest through the trees. This is huge bang for your buck in terms of the impact, the positive impact that you're having for residents who need it. And then I wanted to second what Pat said about considering setting sort of like the base rate for some of these things higher, which allows you to create that sliding scale and allows you to maybe offer even deeper discounts. I absolutely trust our community to, pay the going rate if they can afford it, and to tell us if they need a little help. I'm not worried about like masses of residents taking discounts when they're making tons of money. I don't see those types of people really in our community. So Those are my thoughts on that. The last thing I'd say is just in terms of what we're providing for seniors, I think Patty hit on it in her public comment. I think Fred hit on it in terms of like the scholarships, but as just broad direction, if we could just take another look at making sure that what we're providing is gonna benefit. Like, I think seniors and kids are two major groups of people that use Parks and Rec, programs and amenities, and I just wanna make sure that we're kind of lifting both of those boats together. So that would be my high level direction. Cool.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very quickly. So, with extra funds, will the, formula for dispersing them be changed? And also, is the goal ever to fund at 100%, or are we any particular family, or just sort of delineating those ideas if in fact more funds are there, to decide, do we give a little to more people or we give more to fewer people?
So I think the challenge with funding 100% is there's less buy-in. So if
Right.
somebody has some buy-in, they understand, hey, I can cover, this town's gonna cover 75, I can cover 25, there's definitely more buy-in and one here to show it there. I think we are going to try to fund as many as we can to get them to meet their max. So like if it's somebody who needs a full scholarship for childcare, we're gonna do as much we can to get them there. We're telling them they only need a half off on a enrichment class, is a different need there. So I think that's when people always come and tell me what's going on. I know my repeat applicants who on a regular basis, I know come and call and talk. So, and then I really rely on my childcare staff who are connected with a lot of those families in the school on a regular basis who need that. So I think that's going forward.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, do we feel we have clear direction? Excellent.
Great, we'll come back with the budget.
Thank you, all three of you, really appreciate it. And that concludes our business items for tonight. We're gonna move on to item 6, which is council reports, and we'll start with the town manager.
I'll just have one report. One is that, I very much enjoyed my last couple weeks. So appreciate really Rebecca stepping up and the rest of the team as well, Daria and others as expected. But it was great to have the support, and obviously we had some unanticipated sort of events happen in the last week that required a lot of real-time, quick action. And so I just want to recognize our great team in supporting me while I was gone. Also, just to note that let me see, there was an announcement. We've launched the ADU Center, which is the accessory dwelling unit sort of assistance center, which is a countywide effort. We partnered with the Sonoma Marin ADU Center, but now that resource is really available to all Marin residents. That was effective on April 1st. And so that allows really residents who are thinking about an ADU to have one-on-one sort of basic consultancy with a professional to advise them on really how to get started. They have pre-approved plans, things like that. One-stop shop for all the different zoning ordinances in the county. And so there was a webinar held last night, actually, that included Corte Madera, where we had staff joining the ADU Center and sort of providing some guidance and help answering questions. And there are a lot of actual Corte Madera residents out there. We've done with three different cities. So just wanted to note that. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Fred, council report.
Yeah, I attended, I'll do this quick, age-friendly Corte Madera. I attended a Marin Wildfire. I also attended Marin Transit Board. One thing there, Marin Transit's going to start a new pilot program or pilot bus run out in West Marin, hopefully sometime this year. They don't have the operating details yet, but we approved funding for it. It'll run from Stinson Beach to Bolinas, Cholima, and then Point Reyes. So it'll service that section of West Marin. Also attended Ross Valley Paramedic Authority subcommittee there. As I mentioned before, we're running 2 different tracks. One is we're looking at deployment study to figure out all the data where ambulance paramedics are running. And then the second part is there's a letter received from Larkspur that had potential legal issues. So we're looking into those legal issues with the general counsel that we retain their services of. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Charles.
Nothing to report, but I was surprised Adam didn't say that that was part of the house, it met the needs of the housing element, but.
Those without.
Sorry, I'm testing out new material.
Needs work.
Tough crowd. Thank you, Rosa.
Okay, March 18th, I attended the review panel for the Community Development Block Grants, which will be awarded in May, federal funds. And March 27th, Maricopa Virtual Shoreline Adaptation Workshop. April 1st, Marin Healthy Youth and Twin Cities Disaster Committee. And April 9th, Shoreline Engagement Video Review, which I attended with our mayor.
Very fun.
Got just a couple of quick things. The MCCMC legislative group. There's a lot of worry about all the many ways the state is coming after our money. All that money we've been talking about tonight. So trying to stay up with that and figure out what we can do to influence that. And I also attended last night's Zoom with Martha and Tracy, and they both did a really good job. I thought Corte Madera, Larkspur and Sausalito looked okay. The Sausalito guy was way late. He showed up way late. But Larkspur had their big head honchos there, and Martha and Tracy totally held down the fort for Corte Madera. Good job. And you were missed. I kept thinking everybody must be having a really great time with Adam away, but no, you were missed a lot. I heard from a few. So.
And I will say, we'll update you. Obviously, our monitors are leaving, so things are really moving rapidly on town hall. We're still, it's a challenge just because as anybody who's tried to open a building, we're now in the situation like a lot of our customers have been in the past, where they're sort of looking for that permit and the C of O and what you need to get there to occupy the building and all the, so things are moving quickly. Furniture is going in this week. We'll update you, but obviously there'll be the May 7th meeting we're going to definitely have here. We're going to try to sort of make the move between May 7th and May 21st over to town hall, but there's a lot of logistical things that need to happen in order to make that happen. I think the good thing is we're not moving a ton of stuff from here, these temporary offices over there, where we're listing like personal belongings and some property files, but we have, it's happening. And so I know we're also looking at trying to schedule a grand opening dates and those sorts of things. And it's a little bit of a moving target now, but it'll start to become clearer as we get closer.
Excellent. And I just have a few things. On March 20th, Adam and I did our first pop-up at the farmer's market, which was great. March 21st, had the Chamber of Commerce mixer at Tesla, which was well attended, and saw many of council colleagues and staff there. So that was great. On March 28th, I attended a Transportation Authority of Marin meeting and just wanted to report back on one thing. They're looking at the potential 580 to 101 connector, which I think a lot of us have kind of taken as an article of faith that that's what's needed to solve northbound afternoon traffic on 101. Their traffic studies are showing that they may actually be able to handle like 80 to 90% of that congestion with basically local improvements at the Bellum Boulevard exit, which would make getting on the freeway basically the Richmond Bridge via Bellum so much faster that people would take that instead of Sir Francis Drake, and it would significantly relieve that congestion. So that was something interesting. Obviously, I think there's more investigation to be done there, but I just wanted to float that for people because it's a significant development. April 2nd, had a Chamber of Commerce board meeting. April 5th, had Cal City's North Bay Executive Committee meeting. And April 9th, had a CMSA, Central Marin Sanitation Agency meeting, and also reviewed the adaptation video with Rosa, which was very impressive, and I'm excited for that to roll out to the community. So that is it. That concludes our council reports. We're gonna have open time for public comment now. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items that are not on tonight's agenda, and any members of the public who'd like to do so via Zoom can just raise their hands and we will bring them online. Lorena, do we have any hands up on Zoom for open time?
Looks like we don't have any hands raised from our attendees, and we don't have any emailed public comment for open time.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I want to thank everyone online who's waited patiently, even if they didn't end up wanting to comment. Item 8, discussion of draft agenda. Any comments on the draft agenda for the next meeting? And if not, we are adjourned.